Welcome to class number 3, session number 1. In this session, we will learn about the basic principles that makes our senses able to sense. Thanks to our senses, we see how to grab an object like a hammer. We can also see and smell a fire from far away. We can taste if the food is ripe and ready to eat. Also, by our senses, we hear a car coming and feel when it's cold. These are our 5 senses: sight, hearing, touch, smell, and taste. As humans, we use a lot of products like cars, phones, and computers. These products have senses that we call sensors, including temperature sensors, pressure sensors, and light sensors. That's the way a product like an automatic door knows when you want to pass throughout it. But wouldn't it be great if these products could really know what we want to do? For example, let's assume that a phone that knows you are in a meeting and silences itself automatically. Or let's imagine that a car that's help you look for a big enough parking spot. Or a computer that knows exactly what you want to do and help you to do that and just that. To do all of these applications, these products need a range of sensors and very clever designs. More and more, very clever design products use a range of sensors to know what we want to do and become better products for it. For example, let's assume that we have cars that see people and stop automatically if you don't do it on time. Or let's assume that there are game consoles that know how you want to hit the ball in a virtual game of tennis, and health measuring devices that alarm a doctor when it's needed. A broadly acceptable definition of a sense would be the following: a system that consists of a group of sensory cell types that responds to a specific physical or chemical phenomena and that corresponds to a particular group of regions within the brain where the signals are received and interpreted. The senses can be roughly divided into 2 main groups. On one hand, senses that respond to chemicals like smelling and response to organic molecules, and on the other hand, senses that respond to physical phenomena like hearing and response to sound waves. Following is a short video that demonstrates how does the vision works. Enjoy.
In order for one to see, a light source is required. Without light, everything is black. The light emits particles called photons, which bounce off solid objects in all directions before eventually reaching the eye. In order to see well, the tissue that they go through must be transparent. First, the cornea, located at the front of the eye. Then, the crystalline lens behind the pupil. Then, the vitreous body in the middle of the eye. Finally, they reach the retina, the eye's photographic plate, stopping at the retinal pigment epithelium, where they set off nerve pulses. These pulses are directed towards the optic nerve, and then the optic pathways, before arriving at the occipital brain where the image is formed. This process is what enables us to take in the world around us.
Now, in this slide, I will present a short video that demonstrates the principles of the hearing sense. Enjoy.
Your ear consists of 3 parts: the outer ear, the middle ear, and the inner ear. These all work together to pass sound through your ear and to your brain. The pinna acts like a funnel to collect the sound waves. These sound waves pass through your ear canal. Here we show the sound waves entering the ear. The sound waves reach the eardrum and cause it to vibrate. The higher the pitch or frequency of the sound, the faster the eardrum will vibrate. These vibrations are then passed on to the middle ear. The middle ear contains 3 tiny bones called the ossicles. These are joined together and to the eardrum. They amplify the sound wave and pass it on to the inner ear. Here we show the ossicles moving in response to the sound waves. The vibrations from the ossicles pass through a small window and into a part of the inner ear called the cochlea. Sound waves travel through the fluid of the cochlea and make the tiny hairs move. Here we show the hairs moving. When the hairs in the cochlea move, they cause an electrical signal to travel through the auditory nerve and to your brain. This electrical signal varies depending on the pitch of the sound and how loud it is. Your brain makes sense of this signal, and so you hear the sound. Here we show the electrical signal moving through the auditory nerve.
Now, and finally for this session, I will present an example for chemical senses and present accordingly a short video that demonstrates the principles of the smelling and tasting sense. Enjoy.
The nasal cavity that detects smell is just beneath the eyes and is lined with a sticky mucus fluid. This mucous membrane measures just 0.06 of a millimeter thick. Specialized olfactory nerve cells are another part of the smelling system. The basic task of these cells is to take messages from smell molecules and take them to the olfactory bulbs. A smell cell is formed by 3 main parts. The cell's body in the middle, and then on one end, tiny hairs called cilia, and on the other, nerve extensions called axons. At this point, astonishing things happen at the axons on the other end of the smell cell. The axons, whose number ranges between 10 and 100, work together in order to transport the signal in the cell to the olfactory bulb inside the brain. They do this by forming a bundle in order to reach the olfactory bulb, and as a group pass through a porous, paper-thin piece of bone called the cribriform plate. It would be no exaggeration to call the special design of the cribriform plate a miracle. This bone has pores in it which allow the passage of the olfactory neurons. Had the bone not been designed in just this way, it would have been impossible for the nerves to connect to each other, and so would have made smelling utterly impossible, even if all the other pieces of the system were right in place. By virtue of this perfect planning behind all the details of our smell system, communication in the smell cells goes off without any hitches. The olfactory bulb is another important part of the olfactory or smell system. The olfactory bulb lies on the front side of the brain, on top of the nasal cavity, concealed upon the brain case. There are 2 olfactory lobes in the brain, just as the nose has 2 nasal cavities. Each of these lobes is about as big as a pea. The olfactory lobes work like a newsroom at a TV station or newspaper. All the signals coming in from the olfactory receptors first gather in this center. Millions of pieces of information are reorganized here. Later, they are sent to the related spots in the brain through smell nerves in order to be reassessed.
The olfactory membrane is a thick yellow-brown structure, about 1 inch square, located in the upper part of each nasal cavity. It consists of about 100 million smell receptor cells, which are surrounded by supporting cells. The smell receptor cells have an olfactory vesicle bearing cilia, which project into the mucus that covers the smell membrane. Chemicals in the air react with the cilia and stimulate the receptor cells. The smell information is passed by the receptor cell axons, which leave the membrane as the first cranial nerve, and which relay with mitral cell axons to the olfactory cortex. The supporting sustenacular cells contain a pigment that colors the membrane yellow. The membrane also contains Bowman's glands, which secrete mucus. Their function is to keep the membrane moist so that chemicals can dissolve and stimulate the cilia.
If you can't smell, you probably can't taste very well either. They are closely related functions. Receptor cells for taste and smell are located in the mouth and nose, respectively. As the receptor cells are stimulated, they send impulses from these organs to the brain's smelling and tasting centers in the cortices. For taste, impulses stimulated by the chemical compounds in food are sent to the gustatory cortex. For smells, impulses stimulated by chemical compounds in odors are sent to the olfactory cortex. As new compounds stimulate the receptors, the brain forms an odor memory bank so that it can recall the odors the next time they are present.
With this video, we come now to the end of class number 3, session number 1. Thank you.